I'm sure if you're a fan of the horror franchise in general, and sci-fi horror in particular, you must be aware of the nastiness that's called Xenomorph. First appearing in Ridley Scott's Alien, the creatures took the horror genre by storm. Their intricate reproductive system and their multiple stages of evolution make the Xenomorphs a force to be reckoned with. But you know all this. Now, what if I told you that a corporation similar to Weyland managed to create a synthetic that was an exact replica of a Xenomorph drone, and not just that it could talk in fluent English, but even handle computers? Well, that's Jeri for you, and in this video, we'll explore everything there is to explore about Jeri, the super synthetic from the 4-issue comic titled Alien's Stronghold. So without further ado, let's begin, shall we? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Prelude. The Grant Corporation was founded by Daniel Grant in the 22nd century. Much like Weyland-Yutani, Grant Corporation was a huge and important Earth-based interplanetary conglomerate in the Alien universe. But unlike Weyland-Yutani and other companies of its era, Grant Corporation was relatively ethical in approach, especially when it came to the study and utilization of xenomorphs. While other firms wanted to become powerful by abusing the xenomorphs, Grant Corporation and its big boss, Daniel Grant, actually wanted to help people. Naturally, the Grant Corporation played a fairly important role in advancing xenomorph-related technology and pharmaceuticals. Notable achievements included the development of acid-resistant suits for handling xenomorphs and the creation of Xenozip, a synthetic drug derived from the royal jelly produced by xenomorph queens. The story of Alien's Stronghold begins with supply runners Philip and Joy Strunk, who arrive at Dr. Casper Nordling's research facility. Their official mission was to deliver synthetic spare parts and other components, but they had another motive, one that Nordling wasn't aware of. It was to uncover any suspicious activities by Nordling for potential prosecution. The Strunk couple had been previously informed that Nordling might be conducting some pretty serious criminal activities in the name of science, and they had been sent by the Grant Corporation higher-ups to investigate. Jeri, the super synthetic. The story began in Nordling's research facility, which also had a xenomorph hive. A few men could be seen harvesting xenomorph eggs, or ovomorphs. Now, it was a pretty strange sight, given how facehuggers usually erupt out of the eggs as soon as a human comes in vicinity. But that's the catch. These men were synthetics, not human beings. So, a facehugger would be pretty much wasting its life if it came out of the egg, and that's how the synthetics could function without a care in the world. However, they did care about the drones, but as of then, the drones were all in the outer chamber where they were collecting new host bodies. Additionally, the android harvesters wore pheromone collars to hide their real self from the ovomorphs. Interestingly, Nordling also had a xenomorph queen in his facility, but she was kept locked up under heavy security. Nordling needed the beast because she was the only source of eggs, which Nordling needed to carry out his mission. Nevertheless, Philip and Joy landed their supply vessel, and Nordling personally came to greet the couple along with Andy and Ned, 2 androids. After completing the basic formalities about the shipment, Nordling offered to escort the couple to their quarters and told them about Jeri, the specialized synthetic that Nordling had created. We also learned that the couple was hired by Grant Corporation because they were a couple. You see, long-term close-quarters cohabitation that required deep space travel often caused crew friction. So Grant Corporation thought that married technical teams were an ideal solution. On the way to the quarters designated for the Strunks, they bump into Jeri. Both Philip and Joy were about to shit their pants, but fortunately for them, Jeri spoke and did so in fine English. A perfect replica of a xenomorph drone, Jeri could move, behave, and even smell like Xenos. Philip was quick to realize what exactly Jeri was. After exchanging pleasantries, the Strunks moved to their quarters. 2 showers and a shave later, we find the Strunks, Nordling, and Jeri at the observation lab, where Nordling was boasting about how foolproof the lab was and how none of the xenomorph drones would ever manage managed to walk out of containment. For instance, the glass window that separated the drones from the lab was 3 feet of the same glass that was used to build windows for space vessels. Additionally, they were coated with Nutrigel, a chemical that neutralized the effects of a xenomorph's acidic blood. But this was not the first xenomorph that we have seen in the comics. As Jeri explained, he was modeled after another synthetic drone named Norbert, which was created by one Dr. Mayakovsky. So Stanley Mayakovsky designed and built the first synthetic alien creature with the intention of facilitating Hive infiltration without losing any lives. Like Norbert, Jeri was equipped with artificial pheromone secretors. However, Jeri's reasoning and speech faculties were highly advanced. To prove just how cool Jeri was, Nordling also made him smoke his cigar, and the Strunks were clearly not pleased at the sight. From the observation room, Nordling took his guests to the main laboratory, where he explained the real task he was sent to accomplish: to create a microorganism that was deadly to the xenomorphs, but not to humans or other organisms. He also introduced them to Lizzie, the android assistant to Nordling, who, let's just say, assisted him in more ways than one. Nordling was the only human among his all-synthetic staff, but he had to stop his self-praise parade when a few drones turned the android harvesters into an elegant mess. To take care of the problem, Nordling sent another one of his androids called Dean, whose only job was to find and annihilate xenomorphs. Dean's capabilities were nothing short of awe-inspiring. He possessed a 3-ton titanium exoskeleton encased in impenetrable armor and an outer layer fortified with Nutrigel, the stuff that protected you from xenomorph blood. This left him virtually indestructible, a formidable adversary in any confrontation. As a heavily armed synthetic, Dean was equipped with a powerful plasma rifle that delivered concussive force of unparalleled magnitude and boasted an energy supply that seemed inexhaustible. In addition to this primary weapon, Dean's arsenal included heavy ordnance such as thermite grenades and flamethrowers, making him a force to be reckoned with in the face of xenomorph outbreaks. Dean was sent to take care of the mess and neutralize the drones. Later, he asked Jeri to go into the Hive to retrieve the body parts and egg cart. Jeri showed a bit of hesitation in carrying out the order. When Joy asked why Jeri sounded reluctant, Nordling explained that the prime directive for an android was saving human life, but their second immediate mandate was self-preservation, without which they wouldn't function properly. Jeri went in and came face to face with Dean, who was about to shoot Jeri down, but Jeri desperately identified himself to Dean and was saved from a certain end. You see, the only way Jeri could keep from being shot was to talk. Dean knew that the creatures did not and could not talk, so if Jeri didn't wish to become toast at the hands of Dean, he had to talk and identify himself. Of course, Nordling could just relay the info to Dean, but he liked the whole thing where Jeri was desperate and helpless. Later that night, the couple discussed just how crazy Nordling and his behavior was, and they even spelt out how they would eventually find something that would incriminate Nordling for more than product abuse. Unbeknownst to them, Jeri was listening to the whole conversation. What will he do? Let's find out in the next issue. Whose side is Jeri on? The second issue did not pick up where the first one left off. We found Jeri broadcasting the feed from the Xeno feeding session, something that pretty much grossed out Philip Strunk. Frustrated, he told Nordling that he was there to run diagnostics on the monitoring systems that detect the smaller, invisible violations of security and not visual checks, which could be done by just about anyone. After this, Philip headed down to run his checks, and Joy started her work elsewhere, with Lizzie there to help her. Later, Philip bumped into Nordling, conducting some extremely crude experiments on a xenomorph chest burster. Nordling was practically severing the creature in the name of science. He said it was important for him to study the creature's immune system, which he was trying to beat. After Philip expressed his displeasure about the experiments, Nordling took him to see Dr. Payne, the only one in the facility who had the skills to treat the injured synthetics. You could say he was the doctor for synthetics. They asked Payne about the whereabouts of Jeri, whose assistance was needed by Philip. However, Payne had sent Jeri to look for an arm that was severed by xenomorphs the previous day. In the next panel, we see Jeri looking for an arm, scared shitless because of Dean's fear. Fortunately for Jeri, he managed to find the arm he was looking for, but on his way out, he bumped into Dean, who was about to charge Jeri, but realized that it was just Jeri and not an actual drone. Also, Joy got very suspicious of Nordling and his motivations. After being directed to the facility's monitoring systems to check on security by Lizzie, she decided to look into the facility's productivity files. Her discovery pretty much shocked her. She found 2 ships landing that were unverified and clearly not sent by Grant Corporation. Furthermore, the Hive was a pretty huge one, but it was producing a fairly small number of eggs. Was Nordling selling away the ovomorphs to someone? Or was there something more sinister going on? On his way to Payne with the arm, Jeri met Joy. Like always, she first got freaked out, but soon found her breath. Curiously enough, Jeri helped her with her investigation and guided her to those exact files that he thought might help her. Nevertheless, the couple attended a formal dinner with Nordling, but the man drugged them and they fell unconscious, only to find themselves in the Hive with a xenomorph drone in the vicinity. What's their fate gonna be? Jeri to the rescue. Sensing the Strunks close by, a facehugger left its shell and plunged towards Joy, but it could not latch itself on her face. Why? Well, Jeri grabbed the creature by its tail and splattered it on a nearby wall. Philip was unconscious, and Joy was scared and furious. However, Jeri took them both and brought them to safety. Once safe, Joy accused Jeri of putting the couple in the Hive, because no way a human could have done that, and the only human present in the facility was Nordling. Additionally, the prime directive of synthetics dictated that humans were not to be harmed, so it was evident that one or more of the synthetics had been reprogrammed to allow them to forget the whole humans first approach. Jeri managed to convince her that he was on their side, but they still needed help. The 3 of them could not gather enough proof of whatever Nordling was doing. You know the whole enemy of an enemy is a friend? They went to Dr. Payne, the synth doctor, to seek help, because apart from Nordling, he was the only one who could get into the weapons case. But Payne rejected their request, since they could have used the weapons to kill Nordling, which was against his prime directive. The 3 then headed to the landing bay to find their ship, but they were surprised to note that the door to the ship had been locked by Nordling, which was curious to Jeri, who knew that Nordling never pulled such stunts. He deduced that Nordling must have done that to stop Cho from finding out that the Strunks were also on the ship. Who was Cho? Well, he was a Grant Corporation guy who came to the facility to pick up shipments of ovomorphs, but in reality, he was a smuggler who sold the eggs in the black market. And of course, the profits were shared between Nordling and Cho. It became pretty evident that Nordling was way out of his limits, but in order to do anything about him, they first had to escape the facility. The Strunks and Jeri headed to Nordling's office because only his personal computer could unlock the door that guarded their ship. However, they got ambushed by Nordling and Dean, who initially seemed hostile, but Jeri figured that he was on the good side, meaning that he had not been reprogrammed by Nordling. Lizzie came to help Nordling, but Jeri destroyed her. Jeri was by their side, but they still needed a weapon or 2 to defend themselves. You see, they didn't know how many synths were working for Nordling and how many were still the good guys. They decided to head to the lab to find the weapons, but on the way, they bumped into a group of androids, fully armed and waiting for them. The sacrifice. The synthetic staff, led by Payne, initially seemed hostile, but the Strunks learned that they were on the side of good, and all they wanted was the destruction of the facility. They sided with Jeri and the Strunks, and they had grown tired of the treatment that Nordling had subjected them to for all these years. But what's an alien story without a few hundred xenomorphs rampaging the place? So all seemed nice and fine, but Nordling, in a fit of rage, managed to open the hatch to the Hive, which of course allowed the Xenos to flood the facility. Next, he wanted to escape this death chamber along with Lizzie, who had been severely damaged by Jeri. As they made their way to an escape pod, a bunch of Xenos attacked the couple. It seemed that despite the way Nordling treated her and how he only used her as a sex synth, she was totally devoted to him. In her final moments, she gathered enough courage to face the attacking Xenos and gave the doctor enough time to escape. escape. To make things worse, the synthetics and the Strunks were attacked by more Xenomorphs. Although the group fought valiantly, they found themselves on the short end of the stick. However, they were saved by Dean, who arrived as their knight in shining armor to take care of the Xenomorphs. The synthetics gave the Strunks a window long enough to escape in their ship. Joy wanted Jeri and the other synths to come along, but they preferred to stay behind. Meanwhile, we found that Nordling had reached his escape pod. In fact, he even escaped his notorious facility. But wait, there's more. You see, a severely injured but still kicking Jeri had managed to get aboard the pod with Nordling. Nordling prayed to Jeri to spare him, but ultimately, Jeri killed Nordling using a virus-infested cigar that was also a creation of Nordling, thereby giving the doctor a taste of his own medicine. The comic ends after Jeri kills Nordling, but his future and fate after that are unknown. However, we know that the systems of Nordling's facility were failing, so it's safe to assume that either Jeri was automatically deactivated or that he was shut down permanently. Personality and traits. The Aliens franchise is nothing if not heart-pounding, and without a doubt, Jeri has proven himself to be one of the most unexpected and entertaining characters of the entire universe. Honestly, I didn't have a lot of expectations from Jeri when the comic started, but I wasn't left disappointed. At first glance, you'd think he is all about intimidation with his menacing looks, but dive a bit deeper and you'll find a quirky, helpful android who's as on point with his manners as androids like Bishop. Oh, and he exudes a touch of eccentricity. This guy could give you a scare with a scream that cuts through the silence, but he's more likely to lend you a hand, as the Strunks found out when they desperately needed an escape from Nordling's clutches. Since Jeri was bound by his programming, he couldn't directly oppose Nordling. He listened to Nordling's commands to the last word, and although he was a bit reluctant at times, he didn't disobey. However, that changed when the lives of the Strunks were threatened. That's when Jeri decided that enough was enough. He labeled Nordling as the ultimate bad guy and took him out. Yet for all his steel and circuits, Jeri had a sense of self-respect. He wasn't a fan of being Nordling's party trick, forced to smoke a cigar for laughs, which went on to show the sense of dignity that androids can possess. His dynamic with Dean was also pretty fascinating. Programmed to wipe out Xenomorphs, Dean often found Jeri in his crosshairs, leading to some tense moments. Thanks to Jeri's gift of the gab, he managed to dodge more than a few plasma shots, but it definitely left him with a more sarcastic edge, especially around his trigger-happy ally. Their interactions were a mix of stress and snark, highlighting the complex relationships that thrive even in the face of alien horror. And if you've reached this point of the video, I suggest you check out our explorations of Norbert and Dean. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.